It was the start of May break, and the Carter household buzzed with excitement. Luggage lay half-packed, music played softly in the background, and laughter echoed through the small suburban home. Tom Carter, a second-year university student, danced around the living room with his younger siblings, Chloe and Max, hyped for their long-awaited trip back to their hometown. For them, May wasn't just about spring, it meant reunions, countryside air, and a break from school and city stress. Their mother, Evelyn Carter, quietly folded clothes and checked off a meticulous list of essentials, slipping in snacks, medications, and toiletries. Her eyes flicked occasionally toward her husband, James, who sat glued to his phone, chuckling at memes instead of helping. She sighed. "Can we take a moment to pray before we finish packing?" she asked gently. James waved her off, not unkindly but dismissively. "Come on, Evelyn. It's just a family trip, not a mission to Mars." Tom rolled his eyes. "Mum, not again. We're fine." Evelyn didn't argue. She simply looked at her family, loud, happy, and spiritually asleep, and murmured under her breath, "God, please protect us, even when they forget to ask." The next morning, Evelyn woke early. The sky was a soft grey, and the hum of morning birds filtered through the windows. As usual, she knelt beside the bed, whispering prayers only God could hear. Her words weren't just routine, they were pleas wrapped in quiet desperation. She had a weight on her chest she couldn't shake, a sense that this trip wasn't just another holiday. At breakfast, while Chloe and Max fought over cereal and Tom scrolled endlessly on his phone, Evelyn tried again. "Before we leave tomorrow, I want us to pray as a family, just 5 minutes. That's all I ask." Tom smirked without looking up. "Mum, no offense, but you say this every time we travel. Nothing ever happens." James chimed in between bites of toast. "You worry too much, Eve. Let the kids enjoy themselves. God knows we're traveling." "He's not petty." Evelyn's smile faltered, but she said nothing. They weren't mocking her to be cruel, they simply didn't understand. The world had raised them to believe that faith was optional, that caution was weakness, and that nothing unseen had power. But Evelyn knew better. She'd seen the cost of ignoring the still, small voice. That evening, James Carter took the car out to pick up a few last-minute items. The sun was dipping low, casting an orange glow across the quiet streets. As he turned onto the narrow road near the edge of town, he saw an old woman standing by a lamppost, her hand raised as if signaling for help. Her clothes were dated, and her eyes, though tired, held something unsettling, like she had seen too much. James slowed down, curious. She stepped closer, her voice raspy but firm. "You're traveling soon, aren't you?" He blinked. "Yeah, how do you know that?" She didn't answer his question. Instead, she said, "Before you go, pray. Fast, if you can. There is danger waiting on the road ahead, something you can't see." James laughed, half nervous, half amused. "Okay, thanks for the fortune cookie wisdom, Grandma." But the woman didn't smile. Her expression hardened. "Mock if you must. But what's coming doesn't care if you believe in it or not. Only those covered in prayer will walk away." Before he could respond, she stepped back into the shadows and disappeared behind the corner shop. James shook his head, muttering, "This town is full of weirdos." Then he drove off, hundreds of miles away, in a forgotten village nestled between hills and dust. Darkness brewed under the surface of tradition. In a modest clay brick home, Margaret James Carter's estranged aunt sat with her lifelong friend, Denise, their faces lit by the flicker of a kerosene lamp. Margaret's voice dripped with bitterness. "Every year, he returns like some savior. His car shining, kids dressed like movie stars, acting like he's better than the rest of us." Denise nodded, sipping her herbal brew. "They don't even look back at us anymore. Your own blood." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "Not this year. I'm done watching him flaunt his luck while we rot in silence." Without another word, they gathered a bundle of cloth, an old photo of James, and a charm hidden deep within a wooden box. That night, under a moonless sky, they ventured into the sacred forest, a place villagers feared after sunset. They arrived at a crumbling shrine, where an old woman with sunken eyes greeted them. "Speak your desire," the woman rasped. Margaret stepped forward. "He must not arrive. Not alive." The witch grinned, revealing blackened teeth. Then blood will greet him on the road. Lightning cracked overhead as the ritual began. The morning of their departure arrived, and the Carters were ready well, almost. Bags were packed, snacks piled high, and the kids were buzzing with excitement, talking about the village and what awaited them. But as they approached the car, the first obstacle hit. James slid into the driver's seat, turning the key. The engine sputtered weakly and then went silent. He tried again. Nothing. The car remained dead, refusing to cooperate. "Great," James muttered under his breath, opening the hood and staring at the engine, as if it would offer an explanation. It was working fine yesterday. Evelyn stood by the door, watching. Her heart skipped a beat. The situation felt wrong. She could feel it deep in her gut. There was no logical reason for the car to fail, nothing that made sense. "Let me try," James said, frustration creeping into his voice. He fiddled with the wires and tried the ignition again. Still, no response. He slammed the hood shut, shaking his head. "I don't know what's going on." Evelyn stepped closer, her eyes steady. "Maybe we're not meant to go today," she said softly. James rolled his eyes. "What? You're seriously going to pull that divine intervention card now?" Evelyn didn't argue. She simply prayed silently, whispering, "God, guide us, even when we don't see the way." With the car rendered useless and no other options, James begrudgingly decided they would take a commercial bus to the village. The kids, still excited about the trip, piled into the bus, chatting about their cousins and the fun they would have. James sat stiffly, clearly irritated, while Evelyn remained calm, her heart heavy with the weight of what she couldn't explain. As the bus began to roll down the road, the atmosphere was charged with a mix of chatter and the hum of the engine. But Evelyn wasn't focused on the bus ride or the noise around her. She felt an overwhelming need to pray, to cover her family with the protection she knew only prayer could offer. "Let's pray before the journey," she said, standing up in the aisle, her voice steady but clear. "Lord, protect us. Keep this bus and everyone on it safe. Watch over our travels." The other passengers glanced at each other, some rolling their eyes, others muttering under their breath. A couple of teenagers snickered. "Seriously? In public?" one of them whispered. Her children, normally used to their mother's morning prayers, grumbled in unison. "Mum, we're not at church. It's just a bus ride." But Evelyn didn't stop. She closed her eyes, blocking out the mockery, her hands clasped tightly. "Lord, take control of this journey. Keep us safe." The road stretched endlessly before them, the rhythm of the bus's tires humming against the pavement. The children had finally quieted down, resting against the windows as they watched the landscape blur by. James leaned back, trying to relax, but a nagging unease gripped his chest. He could never shake the feeling that something was wrong. Suddenly, the driver's voice broke through the calm, his tone sharp and panicked. "The brakes. The brakes aren't working." The bus lurched forward, and chaos erupted inside. Passengers screamed in terror as the vehicle swerved violently from side to side, fighting the driver's desperate attempts to regain control. James grabbed onto the seat in front of him, his heart pounding in his chest, but there was nothing he could do. Evelyn's eyes locked onto her children, her arms instinctively pulling them closer. Her lips moved in a silent prayer, whispering over and over, "Lord, save us, please." Ahead, the shadow of a massive tanker truck appeared, filling the entire road. The bus careened toward it, too fast, too out of control. Time seemed to slow as the screech of the tires filled the air, mingling with the screams of terror. Evelyn's prayer was cut short. And then, with a deafening crash, the world went black. The sound of metal twisting and glass shattering filled the air, and everything went silent. The air around Evelyn was thick with smoke and the sound of distant sirens. She slowly opened her eyes, disoriented by the violent crash. The bus was a crumpled heap of metal, and chaos surrounded her. Yet, in the midst of it all, she felt a strange stillness. When her gaze shifted to her children, relief flooded her chest. They were huddled together, unharmed, their eyes wide with fear, but not a scratch on them. The seat they'd been in had been torn apart, yet somehow, they were perfectly safe. "Are you all right? Are you hurt?" Evelyn asked, panic still gripping her voice as she checked them over. They nodded silently, still processing the shock, but physically intact. Evelyn's heart pounded as she turned toward James, her husband. He was unconscious, his legs pinned beneath the wreckage. Blood stained his clothes, and his breath was shallow, but he was alive. His chest rose and fell in weak, steady breaths. "James, please," Evelyn cried, scrambling over the wreckage, her hands shaking as she reached him. Rescue teams arrived and worked swiftly, pulling him free. His injuries were severe, his legs crushed, but he was alive. Evelyn clung to him, silently thanking God for the miracle of survival. Days after the accident, as James lay in the hospital recovering from his life-threatening injuries, the door to his room opened quietly. Evelyn looked up in surprise to see the same old woman who had warned them before the trip standing in the doorway, her presence calm and knowing. "Do you remember me?" the woman asked, her voice soft yet carrying a weight of understanding. Evelyn's heart skipped a beat as recognition dawned. "Yes," Evelyn whispered, "you were the one who told my husband to pray before the trip. You warned us." The old woman nodded, her eyes filled with a depth of sorrow. "I warned you, but he did not listen. It was not just an accident, dear. There were darker forces at play, forces that wanted to see your family destroyed." Evelyn's eyes widened as the woman continued, "Your stepmother, that woman who envied your success, sought out the witches in your village. They placed a curse on you and your family, hoping the crash would kill you all." A chill ran down Evelyn's spine, but the old woman's expression softened. "But your faith, your constant prayers, saved you. Your belief in the power of prayer protected you and your children." Tears filled Evelyn's eyes as she held the woman's gaze. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for saving us." As weeks passed, James's physical wounds began to heal, but the emotional scars from the accident lingered deep within him. Lying in his hospital bed, he had ample time to reflect on his actions, his stubbornness, and the consequences that nearly cost him everything. Evelyn's silent prayers had been the shield that protected them all, and now he couldn't deny the truth any longer. The day he was discharged from the hospital, James gathered his family in their living room, the weight of his newfound humility in his voice. "I've learned my lesson," he began, looking at Evelyn and their children. "I was foolish. I thought I could control everything. I didn't take the warnings seriously, and I didn't appreciate the power of prayer." Evelyn smiled softly, tears of relief welling in her eyes. James dropped to his knees, his hands trembling, but sincere. "From now on, we will pray before every journey, before every step. I will never underestimate the power of faith again." The family bowed their heads together, and from that day forward, their prayers became an integral part of their lives. James's transformation was evident to all who knew him. He became the first to lead prayers every morning, his faith unshakable. And as for their travels, no trip big or small was ever undertaken without a prayer. Their story became a warning, not just for their family, but for every student and every family. Prayer is powerful, and never take it for granted.